All right. Do we speak to other people or do we move to the news? Let's speak to one more person. Hello, Musavaino.
Hello, glad to be here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What did you want to talk about?
So I want to talk about some kind of like a worldview, philosophical, moral issues.
Issues?
So I was recently watching your channel and you gave this kind of critique on atheist activism. They have not solved kind of this baby making problem in Western society, and that they should be kind of maybe careful from spreading their kind of thinking because they cause low birth rates. Do you remember that?
Yeah, atheist, because I'm losing some of your sound sometime, but are you saying that atheists do that?
Yes, atheists do that they have a low birth rate.
Yes, they have a low birth rate. Yes, I've said that.
Yeah, so I'm really interested in that kind of this idea that what kind of worldview, what should atheists basically change on their thinking, or could they adapt some good parts of religious thinking to fix that kind of problem? Because religious people don't seem to have that problem with the low birth rate.
Yeah, I think I think it's a respectable endeavor. I'm not sure if it's possible. Maybe religion is such that essentially you need all of the ingredients for them to work together, as Brett Weinstein had been suggesting. But something tells me that we could have a secularist philosophy that still encourages people to make baby. But people have evolved so much in the context of religion that it may be unattainable with current human beings. It's like you can either tell a woman, well, look, God wants you to have babies and it's a decent thing in your life to do, to just choose a husband and make 10 babies. If you want to explain that to a woman without God, how do you do?
Yeah, I definitely see that problem. And I tell you a bit about myself. I would call myself like a Christian atheist or culture Christian. And I don't believe in any kind of personal God. I rather see that the resurrection of Jesus Christ and the concept of God, then they can be very useful for certain people, perhaps a little bit like, this is hard to say and a little bit, of course, evil to say, but if you have a low IQ, basically, so that you will need to, you don't see that you shouldn't, for example, lie or cheat or whatever, but if you fear that you will be punished for it, then some people need that fear that they can act in our society productively.
Yeah, and it could be that religion works precisely because it recruits the normal fear structures of a brain that other stimuli fail at recruiting. Now, people are speculating on the regular chat based on your accent. They are like, is he from Romania? He sounds like Zizek, the communist. They want to know where you are from.
I'm from Finland.
Finland. Okay, so not Eastern Russia or anything like that.
No.
All right, very interesting. So that is the accent from Finland, guys.
I don't have the best pronunciation. One more question, if you may. That do you believe that time is cyclical, or do you see that some people seem to believe that time is kind of a progressive?
Cyclical or linear? Well, time, certainly the time of physics is certainly linear, and I don't see how it would be cyclical unless you want to talk about the baby universe theory and the possibility that universes are born from other universes.
Maybe I mean more like history.
History. So it's not the time of physics, then it is the development of history. Well, I think that there are cyclical phenomena in evolution, in the animal world, and in ecology. So there is such a thing. You have the predators attaining a certain population, then they eat all of their prey, and then the prey are diminishing, and therefore there's less predators that can live off them, and therefore they die, therefore prey rise again. So you have cyclical systems between parasitic life forms, between predator and prey, and I have no doubt that such things happen in human societies. In anything where some humans are feeding off of other humans, and by feeding off, I don't mean cannibalism, but I mean the state systems, the military takeover of nations, the religious layer of society benefiting from the non-religious elite, the non-elites. All of these systems could be cyclical in that they are all ultimately predator-prey systems.
I see. That's very interesting. I want to contrast this to that. I see that some leftist people seem to think that it's kind of a progressive, we have some kind of moral progress. And for example, they seem to think that people in Africa or Middle East, they might be just like 400 years behind our time. And if we just give them a lot of money and time, they will somehow develop the same values as we and somehow develop their society in the same direction. But I really don't see that happening. Like then there comes the different cultures, different religions. And I would say that kind of a caliphate in 1,000 years will still look like a caliphate in 1,000 years and not like some kind of progressive Western society. But like, for example, our country has now this problem that we have very leftist government right now, and they are giving like a crazy amount of money to Africa and doing it by taking more debt, selling more of our like financial assets of our country.
I fully agree. There is a delusion of leftists thinking that they can fix the world, that they can socially engineer the world. What they ignore is that our world and our greatness was not socially engineered. Nobody decided that Europe would rise and that it would rise in science, and it all happened naturally. You cannot make it what you want. Society doesn't work that way. Society has systems that will react to your attempts at modifying it. There are people who are ready to exploit any money you can send at them. There are corruption mechanisms in society that ensure that things will not go the way you plan they go. They will go the way they evolve, and they evolve on their own.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I'm thinking that could you trace that kind of problematic thinking that I try to tell you about in leftist mind to kind of Enlightenment era and some of how the philosophies there go wrong? For example, like if you read John Locke or these classical liberal thinkers, then it seems like, well, first of all, some of their moral views were clearly based on the Bible, but then also that like they see men as these kind of rational creatures that you can change their mind if you just give them the right evidence, and they can evaluate that, and then they can make a good democratic vote. But I'm really skeptical about this. I really don't see this happening, and I think it's kind of a scam that is being sold to us.
Absolutely, I agree. The problem is that these humanities people and social scientists and philosophers, they don't have the rigor of a hard science education, or at least a biology education of some kind, where you realize that, whoa, this whole idea that we can convince people to change, where did we prove that? We never did. And once you realize this, you realize that the world is headed in a very bad direction.
Definitely. And lastly, I want to ask about your book. I don't want to take your time too much. I really love the revolutionary phenotype, and I was straight buying it when it came out, and I've been enjoying it and been thinking about the theory a lot, and I find it very convincing. But I'm thinking, because you kind of, in the start of the book, you give kind of this refutal to memetics, which seems very like, this is very logical that memes don't have themselves the ability to reproduce themselves. Now, I'm thinking that because if you kind of go with the logic of the book, then there's the biological revolutionary phenotype, but then it also goes into a little bit that we would have these different gene recipes over the world, and they would kind of compete in an evolutionary structure almost against each other, and we could kind of use evolutionary theory to also predict what will happen, and what will happen is that humans lose their reproductive control.
Yes.
But I'm thinking that doesn't it kind of like almost be like memetics, because those different recipes, those different machines can't reproduce themselves. Humans might have like interest to reproduce those machines and those recipe printing places, but it's kind of like, for example, Quran or Bible, that Bible also needs human to print it out and teach it to people and stuff like that. It's in the same way under memetics, or does this make sense?
Well, the thing is, the reason I reject memetics is the trickster printer chapter. So ultimately, memetics do not work like this for one reason. Like, there can be evolutionary forces selecting memes one against the other. But in the end, the memes are subject to constant reprinting by brains, and therefore they don't have random mutations. And that is what makes the meme ultimately slaves of the DNA genes. This does not happen with the human recipes at the end of the chapter, at the end of the end of DNA. It doesn't happen. There's no trickster printer changing the behavior of the computer. So it's the question of trickster printer and whether there is one. There is one for memes, but there is not one for the revolutionary phenotype.
Okay, that's amazing. I didn't think it's like that. But hey, thank you so much. And next time I'll ask you about nihilism or something like that. Thank you, and goodbye.
Very nice. Thank you for calling. A very enthusiastic audience member. I really like this. I like to see. I mean, I would not have suspected that some guy in Finland was reading my book and was thinking about these questions. It's very great. Jewel Citizen says, great caller, you should give him a regular shot. Entertaining. Absolutely. It was very cheering. I don't know if that's the right word.